to where you are now as the CEO of Airtel. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it's when I studied electrical and electronic engineering. First, telecommunications was very big. Telecommunications, can you hear me? Okay. So back then, when I studied electrical and electronic engineering, telecommunications wasn't very big. It was a growing field. If you think about it, telecoms is only about 21 or 22 years old. It's not a very old industry. But what I did take advantage of at the time was that as an electrical and electronic undergrad, we had to do things like wide area networks, so IT stuff. We had to do microwave. My project was on microwave transmission. So I enjoyed those aspects of it that were sort of a bit more futuristic. I mean, for many of you, this is going to be like news, but a big highlight going to university for me was I was going to get an email account for the first time in my life, and I was seriously excited. I mean, Facebook didn't exist, and none of the things that you guys take for granted existed. But I stayed very focused on one thing throughout, and that was I knew that I ultimately wanted to lead a large organization. This was very clear to me. The how and what that would be would evolve over time, but I opened myself up to opportunities. So when I left university as an electrical and electronic engineer, I went into work with a very open mind. Initially, you step in and you have to work closely linked to what you studied. But I quickly started asking to do other things, like manage a project or lead a team or go and work in manufacturing, which I hadn't done. I wasn't a manufacturing engineer. But every time you ask to do something else and something more, you build your skills, you build your competencies, you learn new things, and you kind of create this world around you that it invites more opportunity, is probably the best way to put it. Now, because I was very clear about leading organizations, I also knew that it wouldn't be as easy or as quick to lead an organization without fully understanding how organizations work commercially. You can make things, you can be the engineer to come up with the bright ideas, but ultimately organizations are about making money. And you make money by selling your products. So if you don't know how to sell a product and you don't know how to convince a customer to buy a product, it's kind of difficult to say you want to run the whole thing. And that's why ultimately I loved being an engineer, and I did it for many, many years. But then I went to do an MBA later in my career because I wanted to learn about how to commercially run business, how to lead people, how do you do it, how do you get it right with them, how do you connect with people. And that's what I learned. Interestingly, I really wanted to move into another industry, but again, it wasn't immediately there. So the first place I went into was investment banking, and that was great. I was able to leverage some of the structured thinking in engineering to work in investment banking. But sometimes in life, you have to be open to opportunity. So every time I tell people I'm an engineer and I build up this story, it sounds almost natural to be in telecommunications, but I tell people honestly that I happened to end up in telecommunications almost by chance. I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and somebody was looking for somebody, and actually they had found somebody else, and that person let the company down. And I just happened to be there at the right time, and they said, actually, this guy lets us down, but you sound like the kind of person who can take this job. And that's how I ended up in telecommunications, and I embraced it with both hands in 2008. And I'm sure we will talk a bit more about that, what happened after that.
Listen, thank you. As I was listening to you, I was thinking of a phrase which says that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So, although you say it was luck, you had done the work, and you were rewarded for doing the work. Okay, we have a lot of young women here who are absolutely awesome young women. They're on this program and they are developing further their leadership skills. What would you say to them in terms of key attributes that they might need, regardless of the field they're going into, that will take them forward?
I think it's very important to be curious. Okay? You shouldn't ever lose touch with curiosity. And the reason why, I think this is important to mention, I was just on the table before I came up here, and the lady on my table was advising one of the young ladies on the table to volunteer. Now, what I never tell people, not because there's a reason not to tell, but my first real field of telecommunications was actually in 2005, many years before I came into the field. And I experienced it purely as a volunteer. I worked for a company, I just come out of my MBA, I hadn't started working yet, and this company said, we could really use your skills. We want to build a tech park in Ghana, but we have absolutely no money, so we're not going to pay you a dime. And I remember doing roadshows for this company and trying to get investors to buy into their technology idea, but most importantly, I had to come and meet with the Ministry of Communications. And this was my first kind of ministry meeting, years before I come into the industry. And I won't forget the day I walked into the meeting with the then Minister of Communications. And I think when I walked into his office, his face dropped. And his face dropped for this simple reason. It's important, ladies. I was 6 months pregnant with my second child. So you walk in and there's this woman with this massive belly coming to have a very serious meeting with you. It's not the kind of thing that people typically expect. But that curiosity meant that I had the opportunity to learn. So stay curious. I think for leadership, you have to quickly learn that your success is not about you. Your ability to succeed depends on how successful you can make other people as a leader. That's very important at any stage in your leadership journey. You have to focus on making other people successful. And I think you need to be able to think on a much longer term than just immediate success as well. Because if you're going to involve people in your leadership journey for success, you have to be able to think over a long period of time to see how things will play out. So be curious, focus on the people around you, make them successful, and take a long-term strategic view of where you're going.
All right, thank you. Does that resonate with you young women? Yeah? Okay, good. All right. I'd like to hear about a challenge that you had. Maybe something that went disastrously wrong and the lessons learned from that to help you to move forward.
Wow. Where do I start from? In 2010, I was offered the opportunity to go and work in the DRC in telecommunications. And anybody who talked to me said, you shouldn't do this. Don't do it. But I went along, and it wasn't a complete disaster to start with. I mean, first it was everybody saying, don't do it. So that kind of psychologically puts you in a little bit of a wrong place. But more importantly, as a leader, I underestimated, the part that didn't go well, I underestimated the impact of people's history and their story of their psychology. What it takes to motivate people in different countries varies very widely, because we're very much impacted by where we have come from. And to give you just one very quick example to kind of bring it to life, when I engage with the team, I make an effort to meet everybody individually and talk to them and get to know them. And I had a young man sitting across from me, and he says to me, I asked him his story, and he says to me, well, the last time that fighting broke out, we were, leaving, trying to get out of town in a van, and a stray bullet hit my brother in the neck, and he dropped dead in front of me. And when someone tells you this, you know that what it takes to move them is a whole lot more than anything you can imagine. So the first few months for me in the DRC were very, very challenging, not from a importance that I place as a leader of the people. And how do I connect? How do I actually build a bridge? How do I motivate? That was extremely, extremely difficult. It's the most difficult leadership job I have ever had in my life, because it took a while for me to understand things I so easily talk about now. Why this experience is so important is that ever since I spent that time in the DRC, anyone, it doesn't matter which company, who from, where they're from, when they engage me professionally, the thing that fascinates them the most and the thing they want to talk about to me the most is my time in the DRC. For them, it's a mark of setting, your competence apart to say if you can make it work there, you can probably make it work anywhere else. So the challenge is really deep, but getting through it meant it's almost like a little bit of a badge. Not to say that boastfully, but to say getting through a challenge, it's a real challenge, gives you something to stand out for.
Thank you. I was just thinking, does everyone know what DRC is? Yes? Okay. Alright, my last question for you. Is everybody happy with DRC? Yes? Let me hear, because I'm not hearing any response.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Thank you, Dave. The Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the biggest and most beautiful countries in Africa.
But there has been a lot of different types of wars there. Yeah. Okay, my last question for you is, now you're in this role, you've been here for 11 months. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
If I start from here and now today, my ultimate goal at the moment is to really help people realize their potential. Predominantly women, but everybody in our country, on our continent, to really realize the potential that they have within them. Because I think everybody has something to offer, something that's uniquely theirs, and they're the only ones who could do better than anybody else. If I stretch that into 5 years, I'd like to be still in roles, get opportunity to continue to positively impact, most particularly, Ghana, but ultimately all of Africa, because it's very easy for people to feel, for me, or many people like me, to suddenly feel almost as though we're fully accomplished. But as always, our country, our continent, our people are not accomplished fully. Our individual accomplishments mean very little. And we have to continually strive to ensure that we are all on this journey together and we're moving forward together. So that's what I hope to be able to do in the next 5 years and beyond.
Lucy, thank you. That's a fantastic answer. Can we give her a round of applause, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? I'm sure there must be some questions. Okay, now no one's wearing a name badge today, so I'm going to have to revert to the lady in the blue blouse, pink dress,